It's 8 in the evening on July 23, 2020. Good evening, everyone. We are being broadcast right now all over Facebook. Well, not all over, but we're doing it live on Facebook through the Poste channel, through the UAP Barasoain chapters page, as well as the UAP Regional District A2A's official Facebook page. Good evening. I am your anchor for this evening. Well, actually, I'm your anchor for the whole show, architect Pacoy Aniag. And as always, we are with architect Vahn Pineda. Good evening, Van.
Good evening, Sir Pacoy, and welcome everyone to Poste, your online source of information and anything for anything design and construction in the Philippines. Our podcast is actually in cooperation with the UAP or United Architects of the Philippines, Barasoain chapter, to which we are in, right? So it's July 22, another Thursday. We are live again to discuss design and architecture. Welcome again to Poste.
And also, as I always say, the flower among the thorns, we have architect Kalai de Leon.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sir Pacoy. Good evening, Architect Van. And I'm so excited
Hello.
for tonight kasi medyo fangirl moment ako na yun. So, medyo, may ganong moment ako. Pero yeah, welcome to our podcast for tonight. And this is our third run. And we hope you
Yes.
get a lot of information and enjoy this night as we
Actually,
will.
our listeners will not only get enjoyment from the show, they'll also get a lot of information and learnings from our guest. Dahil the guest that we have for tonight, although he's not here yet, he's already mentioned that he'll join the room in about 5 to 8 minutes. But he's a proponent of social architecture. And aside from the UAP as an organization, I would say, given I've seen his profiles and the work that he's done, I could easily say that he may be a leader in social architecture, especially for the social projects that he's been getting into. Promoting the profession, promoting good design, and generally promoting the arts altogether. So, and in case you didn't know it yet, we are having architect William T of WTA Designs, who will be joining us in a bit. Social architecture. Kayong dalawa, have you had any experience with it? Kasi dati pagka sinabing actually not social architecture, ako more of ideas ko of social anything is social business. Parang yung mga ginagawa ni Ilyak Diaz.
Mhm. I think for me, my experience with social architecture is more of office spaces. I worked with a certain industry before where collaboration and cooperations with different workers are being encouraged. And those spaces inside the office were transformed para ma-promote um, other than, kasi if we think about offices and the most common thing na may isip natin to gather people around is during meetings and conferences. But this type of industry where I was with before really promoted um, collaboration from each and every parang employee, ganon. So there was several rooms there that were transformed so that everyone can work together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that actually nakakatuwa kasi that was several, I think in the Philippine setting, that was really several years ago. Siguro I think about good 8 or 9, 10 years ago. And then from that kind of concept, being someone who studies design, natutuwa ako for that kind of concept. And then nakita ko siya emerging from this kind of concept to what we actually call now a collaborative space sa mga offices. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of industries now, and there are a lot of companies who are renovating and converting their office setup to become this collaborative na nga.
Yes. Yun nga, before this interview, The notion that I had for social architecture was social outreach.
Mhm,
Na
yes.
although he does as well, si architect William T, but that's all I knew about it. What you're saying now is it's more social architecture, social design is more on a collaborative sense, correct?
Not just collaborative, sir. Kasi that kind of term or that kind of setup worked for an office, but for me, like social design or social architecture is more of a space that actually promotes or engages people to like interact to each other. Parang it promotes a certain human behavior. And hirap lang tayo right now because of the COVID pandemic, but I've seen a lot of spaces that transforms parang or that promotes human interaction eh. Hindi lang in terms of work but socialization din, being with friends. You know, ang isa pang nakita ko dito is if you've been to Poblacion, Makati,
Mm-hmm.
if you hang out Friday night, 'di ba there are a lot of bars there. Pero if you notice, yung mga bars sa Poblacion, they're so big. And then, on a good Friday night or on a good weekend, makikita mo yung mga tao nasa labas and they're socializing and they're
Yes.
interacting. And I think that that kind of area has transformed from a certain residential area to a more parang social gathering na.
Yes, I actually have a project there. Siguro mga natapos yun na mga, I think, last year. And
Mhm.
you know what, in Poblacion to you today is what Malate was to us when I was younger. It's a same.
Kaya naman usapang age na naman tayo, eh.
No, no, no. It's pretty much the same atmosphere that it creates. Dahil, as you said, um, more spaces towards the outdoors. So lahat ng tao
Mm.
nakatambay sa labas, nakatambay sa kalsada. In fact, wala nang maparadaan yung kotse. Para siyang nagiging street party eh.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
in my opinion, what Poblacion did for that, kasi ang Poblacion before, siguro I'd say 10, 15 years ago, that was pretty much, other than a residential area, that was pretty much a red light area. That was a red light district. And
Yes.
until now,
Yeah.
actually, Burgos Street,
Yes.
very red pa rin ang ilaw dun. Hindi ba? And what
Of course.
from the project that I had, the owner is very into the community. She engages
Mhm.
with the barangay and the developers of the area. Sinabi nga niya, it's really their goal to not so much naman to push out the red light, pero sabihin na natin talagang push out. Ayaw naman nilang ng negosyo, ayaw naman lang mawalan ng hanap buhay yung mga tao. Pero they're more interested in removing that notion of poblasyon na red light.
Mhm.
To which they're, I
Mhm.
think, to which they're fairly succeeding. I mean, it's become a place for good food, good art, and even good music.
Yeah.
Yes.
With limitations, of course, dahil syempre, pagka may good music ka, meron ka rin good neighbors na umaangal sa lakas ng music nyo doon, hindi
Yes.
ba?
I actually have experience with that kasi my sister lives in Poblacion, Makati, and yung bahay nung husband niya was like they're siguro the original residents of Poblacion, Makati, and then they've seen bars really grow. At kapag gabi, even sometimes kapag nandun ako sa gabi, I can hear yung mga tunog ng bars and nakaka-tempt pumunta.
Kaya, kaya
But
nga,
also, sir,
yes.
go ahead, sir.
Hindi, kaya nga. So, not only is it from the volume of not the music, but the people as well indoors, pero pati sa labas talagang nagbe-bleed out yung patrons nila to the streets. Kaya nga, kung isa kang establishment doon na parang typical with a main door, tas flat windows. Actually, hindi ka, well, mabubuhay ka, pero kung wala kang outdoor, what's the term? Anyway, outdoor area, medyo hindi ka, I don't want to say hindi ka tatagal, pero medyo mahihirapan. Kasi ako mismo, pag tumatambay, not only there, kahit sa ibang areas, na-enjoy ko sa labas eh. Kasi one, mas malamig.
True.
And two, wala lang, masayang nakikita ang langit eh. Hindi ba?
Yes.
Totoo.
And in
Totoo.
terms of ano naman in terms of travel, in terms of like hospitality, I think social architecture then has emerged because of I forgot the name, but what's the name of this resort in La Union? I forgot.
Thunderbird.
No, sir, hindi pa. May isa pa. Kalai, alam mo to.
Ako
Ah,
nakapunta
yung
ng La Union, girl. May
Anyway,
surf.
yes.
Kalan.
yun,
Anyway,
di ba si
our guest
Hey,
is
everybody.
here. Yes, good evening. Let me introduce our guest very quickly. Good evening, Architect William T. How are you tonight?
Good, good. Thanks for inviting.
It turns out
Hi,
we're actually batchmates
Ah, really?
sa
UST?
UST. Yes, I was section 4, you were section 1. Kaklase mo sila Jano Eustaquio, sila Benson.
Yeah. Sila
Yeah.
Benson.
Kasi I saw in your profile you graduated 2002 and that's my graduating batch as well.
Okay.
So yes, I am architect Pacoy Aniag. This is we have also with us architect Vahn Pineda, and of course architect Kalai de Leon and architect William T. Welcome to the Poste podcast. This is a third edition, and
Hey, guys.
with you as guest tonight. How are you tonight, sir?
Good. Hectic night. But yeah,
very
everything's good.
busy, but
Yeah, it's quite yeah, there's some work lately, so yeah.
Ah. So yes, sir. Well, let's. We don't want to keep you from your work, so let's get into it. This is Post the Podcast, where we're just gonna be talking about. Actually, we're talking about you. We're talking about what you've done, what you're into, the projects that you've had, and also perhaps the significant. More importantly, since our topic is social architecture, the significance of the work that you've had towards everyone who's been touched by your projects.
Mm, okay. Well, I'm glad actually that more people are learning about it, or hearing about it. I think that's really our goal. I think our office really the main goal is for us to be able to kind of like have a bigger impact socially.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's that's why we do what we do. It's a little bit not very architectural, like because most architects they're very private with their work and they're careful about spreading their work, right? So, but I think for us it's the other way around. As much as possible, we want more people to do the same thing actually. So I think that's really our goal.
Okay.
sir, Architect William, I think the first thing that we wanted to know tonight is, recently you made news because of you spearheaded the design for the COVID-19 emergency quarantine facility, right? I think that is being used now for a lot of medical institutions. Now, what we want to know first is how did you become involved in this project? What was the
Um,
story?
we started the project basically I think the during the middle of March, right? The week of March 20th. A lot of the hospitals were like sending out letters or statements saying they were at capacity, right? And they could no longer accommodate patients like they are saying now. So I have a friend, a childhood friend, who's a doctor, and
Mhm.
we have our group chats during lockdown because everyone had their own groups, right?
Yeah.
And so we were saying there's really not much we could do, how we can donate, where can we donate. And then we were discussing the problem about there not being enough space for the hospitals, right? And so immediately we kind of like said, oh, as architects, that's what we should be doing. That's our role in society, to provide shelter and to build. So I think that was why we started it. And right then and there, I kind of remembered last February during Anthology Festival, we did this pavilion called No Virgins. And
Mm.
one of the key concepts for that pavilion was this idea that you can do architecture quite informally and quite fast. It was put up in about 5 days also. And so we said, okay, we have the proof of concept. It's already there. It's standing. So immediately we can actually execute this. And so I think it was very
Wow.
fast from day one. From the first conversation to day one, it was really quite quick.
I see. Well, when you did the quarantine facilities, prior to that, I had the notion, or I was talking to several people, and what I told them was, you know what, there's very little that architects can do at this moment because we are
Mhm.
preventive. The work that we do tends to prevent anything, well, not naman anything from happening, but when something does happen, it's the work that we have can prevent those things. Pero the work that you did with the quarantine facilities is clear that there's something that we can do about a pandemic such as this one.
Yeah, I think architects, by our very nature, we're kind of socialists in a way, right? We're
Yes.
humanists and socialists, right? And so I think the idea that you have public is very inherent in our practice. And so the idea that we needed to do something just to show that we have a role to play in society, I think was very important.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I would totally agree. Actually, sir, I was really inspired and amazed kung gaano nakarami yung nabe-build niyo. Siyempre, it started with you tapos it kept spreading. How many EQFs na meron tayo, sir, ngayon as to date?
Okay, so our group, we actually, like, personally, we built about 75 facilities. So that's about maybe around
Hmm.
1,200
mm,
beds.
Mm.
I think in total, including those
mhm,
done by our friends in the industry, I think there's some in Davao, in Cebu, Tarlac, um, I think in Naga,
Same.
in Bicol. So I think that's about almost 3,000 beds all in all in the whole system.
Wow.
And then in Singapore, we have another friend who actually brought it to the government and then did some adjustments for the local regulations, and then they built about 3,000 beds in Singapore also.
So to get this off
Mm.
the ground, how did you? I mean, you can't just build something tapos makikita na kagad ng government natin. Did you? Who were you in contact with the government, or and how? Basically, how did you get the people that needed to know about this know about it?
Um, Actually, the reality is that was actually what happened. We weren't really talking to anyone.
Mm,
So like I said, March 24 was our first conversation. The next day, my friend had some classmates from the AFP. So Glenn called Major Melo
mm,
Haluage, Major Banjo Badayos, because they also needed facilities in their hospitals, right? The
mm-hmm.
military hospitals. And so we said, well, why don't we just do it for them, but on the condition that we can actually do also for civilians, right? And so
Yes.
we said,
Mm.
can we use the trucks of the AFP for logistics and all that? And yeah, so and then they were really the ones who made it happen. So the first one we built was for the Manila Naval Station. That was the first one we finished. So the timeline was March 24. That night we had our first conversation. March 25th, we were working on the drawings and reaching out to volunteers. March 26th, we were trying to get sponsors and vendors. March 27th, they were delivering the materials. March 28th, day one. And then April 1st, it finished the first one.
Wow. Okay.
So it was really a very different kind of architecture if you think about it. Because architecture, we're always used to the saying that anything that's good takes time, right?
Yes.
And but in this case, time was not a friend, right?
Mhm.
Time really was what we were fighting against.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
I
Mahirap
guess
and I
what I
lost
wanted
myself.
to know right now is
Yes, Van?
no, sir. I wanted to know with the setup of this quarantine and hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, Van.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I thought you lost me. Okay, with the lockdown and everything, and you spearheading the project, paano yung setup? Are you working virtually? Are you working remotely? Paano yun?
No, that was really that's why I think I really posted a lot on Facebook and Instagram, asking for volunteers. Because the way you can actually
Mm-hmm.
get this built in 5 days, you had to have the architects on site. So we
Mhm.
were actually
Yes.
on site, and I think a lot of friends volunteered also, even staff from my office. And in the end, it was almost like the whole architecture industry coming together. The designers, the builders, the
Wow.
vendors. We got a lot of donors. A lot of contractors donated their workers to us, the manpower. And yeah, so I think it was really parang touching in a way. If you see everyone coming together and wanting
Yes.
to do something and getting it done, not for any financial objective, but simply because I think at that time also everyone was fearful for what might happen.
Was
Ah,
during the whole thing, was anyone from your staff or the people you worked with, did anyone contract the virus, or everyone safe naman?
Yeah, everyone's safe, thank God. Yeah, nobody caught it. Well, we actually had the fear. I think me and another staff, we tested positive sa rapid test. But then
Wow.
when we took the
Oh,
swab test, then it's kind of okay.
Yeah, hindi ganun ka trustworthy yung rapid test no.
Yeah, it's very false. From our experience, like out of 100 positives, you probably get the real positive is about maybe 20%.
Wow. So
oh.
ganun ka
oh,
unreliable siya.
Yeah. Kumbaga, you have a bigger chance that it's wrong than it's right.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I actually have the pictures
Okay.
nung mga facilities from actually these are from your website, Architect William. So, can I
Mhm.
just show them para everybody
Oh,
has
Share
sure.
it, share it.
uh, these are actually um articles from everywhere. These are from your website. There is wait lang. This is from Monocle on Design. So,
It's a
is
podcast.
it
That's a
already?
podcast.
Oh, yeah. Kasi there's a picture here. There are actually several, oh, hindi pa pala naka-up, sorry.
Present now.
I'm
Okay.
presenting. So, here. So,
While we're waiting, Architect William,
Mm-hmm.
ayan ba?
Ayan.
All right, go.
ayan. So here, here are some of the articles that are in your website that um, sobrang dami nila that are actually featured dito sa
Sorry, I'm not very familiar with our website.
Pero I just have to say kasi sir na ang dami talagang amazed on how you did this and how you pulled it off. Kasi ako mismo na amazed dun sa 5 days eh. Kasi I've learned about this
Yes.
nung nag-attend ako ng webinar sa UAPSG. So I
Mm.
attended that and that's when I heard of social architecture first. Tapos from then parang na-amaze na ako how they did this. So ito yung sa where is this,
Mm.
sir? Yung sa may
Yeah, that's
Actually,
the first one actually. That's the Manila Naval Station one.
Actually,
sorry.
I'm more amazed at the fact that you got it out there. Kasi maraming during the heat of the pandemic, maraming lumabas na designs online. Yung iba gawa
Yeah.
lang sa tent, gawa ng whatever. Ang dami-dami talagang engineers, architects who propose something. Pero at least kayo what's amazing is you really got it out there. You really got people to use them, and you really got support for the project.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think one of the reasons is that it's actually important for you to know what you're proposing. I think a lot of I don't know if you're familiar, but a lot of the proposals were actually about container vans, right?
Yes, yes.
And there's just a lot of things that do not work with that. And so I think the people who are looking at them are not really familiar with container vans
Uh
and
huh.
just looking at it as like, okay, it's something I know, it's something I see, and maybe it can be used. But when you actually really go into it and you've actually used that container van, you will see the problems with it. And so I think that's why a lot of the solutions being presented were that way, because the proposals were not something that were real. Like I
Hmm.
said, the biggest help really was
Mhm.
we've already built the proof of concept 2 months ago in February. So
Isn't
we were actually kind of confident about it being real.
Yes, isn't the DOH doing something? Parang meron silang quarantine park with container vans already. Parang I saw something of the like in the news somewhere. Yung parang may mga color pa sa gilid. Parang they wanted to make it a little bit more creative.
I don't think the DOH did that, but anyway, just to give you an idea, the biggest challenge you have here, or your main goal, is scalability and speed.
Mm,
You
correct.
only have these two things, nothing else, right? Nothing
Yeah.
else. You just need scalability and speed, right? How are you gonna get these vans to places where that don't have these, right?
Yeah.
Because there's lockdown,
Mm.
right? Remember, there's lockdown. There's not. You need those trailers. You need those cranes, right? And even if you could get a container van to where you want to, container vans are heat sinks. They're
Yes.
Mm.
extremely hot. So what? You have to weld it. You have to open, windows. You have to fit out new windows
Insulate and
and
everything.
Insulation.
insulate and everything. So the actual work you're gonna put in is even much more expensive than the actual van itself, and might even take longer. Right.
Mm.
Second, there's a finite number of container vans that are available, especially back then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like I said, it has to be scalable. And you have to
Mm.
remember we have 7,000 islands in our country,
Yeah.
and a lot of them don't have access to
Yes,
these,
sir.
right?
So
So I think that those are the certain things that are,
for the quarantine facilities you built for one unit, how much did it cost?
when we were starting, it was about 350,000 per unit because a lot of the materials were donated,
Ah,
right? So
okay.
a lot of the materials were. I think the last one it was costing about 750,000 per unit. So that gives you about, well, a little bit less than 20,000 per bed.
Mm, okay.
To give you an idea,
Okay.
from what I know, the big facilities are costing about 1.1 billion for 240 or 200 something beds. So that's a
A
scale of
billion.
about,
Uh,
yeah, that's a scale of about 100, right? That's like 100 times.
Yes, yes.
So how will you scale that, right? Now that we've
Mm.
spent all our emergency funds, all our billions, where do we get the money to build more? So
Mm.
that's why there has to be a solution that fits our problem and architecture must always be done in context, right?
Yes,
There
yeah.
is a
Mm.
certain context of our country that we have to work with.
Yeah. Architect William, may isa akong na-encounter na wording from you. I can may notes pa ako nun from dun sa webinar na in-attendan ko. This is what you said. Architecture is not about the materials or the structure. It's about the spaces and the users that are housed within it. So, doon ako sobrang na-move kasi it's actually designing for someone who will use it. It doesn't matter what form, what materials, 'di ba? So, architecture isn't about that. It's about people talaga. So,
I think our architecture really is very atheistic, when it comes to materials. Yeah, I think
yes.
yeah.
that's not where we excel.
And
Yeah.
actually, since we're still on the topic of the quarantine facilities, it's good that someone out there was actually came up with it. That if we base it on the developments that the government has been having, I'll point out one design that they have is yung motorcycle barrier. Na parang just ko sa inyo ba hinugot 'yan, hindi ba? Parang I'm like you, I'm sure that a lot of companies locally are more than willing to support the government in any research or any design for something. Kaso lang, they're not tapping into the companies. And that's why we have something like the motorcycle passenger barrier right now.
I think I just did an interview recently, and for me, one of the problems with the way we approach, with the way government approaches planning, and urban problems in our country, right,
Yeah.
is that we have an engineer's approach.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong against engineers, right? If you have a problem, they're the perfect people to call.
Mhm.
Right? They're firefighters. They will solve your problem. Okay. But when you're planning a city, when you're doing something that is organic, you have to be able to make projections,
Yes.
right? And that's what architects do. We make projections, we accommodate the future, right? And so that's why you have to have this certain familiarity with human conditions. And I think that's where our problems lie, in terms of city planning, is that all our solutions seem to be engineer led. And so they are just solutions, but they do not plan.
Yeah.
And so I think there has to be an understanding of the discrepancy between solving a problem and actually planning or preventing a problem, even, or improving our cities, right? So I think that's one of the that I think your example is basically that it's an engineer solution.
Actually, last week during the no, two podcasts ago, 2 weeks ago, I was talking about that. I was talking about how why during the pandemic we got into deeper trouble with it because of the government's lack of design mentality or design approach and leaving it to industry experts or attention to design. Kaya ganun. Case in point, yung sinasabi ko nga sa kanila, just look at our public spaces. Our public spaces have become malls and not outdoor spaces, public parks, di ba? As you can compare to other countries such as for one Singapore.
Yeah, I think the government really are at a loss when it comes to action. Our government is used to. So imagine our country, right? We are a country of 100 million Filipinos. Metro Manila is the second biggest city or second richest city in Southeast Asia, and yet we cannot build anything without private partners.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is PPP.
Yeah.
So you just see what is the capacity of our infrastructure experts, so-called experts in government, and that's where you see the problem is, right? We cannot get anything done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tama nga
Okay.
na sa
Sir, I for me, what I wanted to find out, uh, you mentioned earlier about the scalability and speed as consideration, and of course funds. And I've seen this emergency quarantine facility on the news or on the articles, pero I really wanted to hear straight from you. Can you tell us about the design of the facility, sir?
Yeah, so the idea behind our architecture basically revolves around deconstructing program into its most basic form, and then trying to put it back together in terms of like the current context and purpose, right? So if you look at what the need was back then, it was just space, right? You need segregated spaces, and that's all you need. So the idea was to simplify it as much as possible. Actually, that was the hard part, right? How simple can you make it? And so you encounter a lot of pushback against that because, of course, oh, maybe this is not right. We don't use that. That is all those things, right? For example, another one problem that was always brought up: what if it rains hard? What if there's a typhoon? Okay, so now we're, I don't know, 4 months down,
Yes.
for 4 months in. I mean, we had a big typhoon. Nothing went down. But I think there's this like rigidity, to the thinking. I think that was one of the problems. So we
Mm,
tried to break down ideas, and so basically our solution was, we have to find materials that are very simple to use and forgiving. Materials in which you do not need special equipment, you do not need technology. Materials wherein like you, me, we can actually build this. Like it's wood, so you need a hammer, you need
Yes,
nails,
yes.
Open
right?
source.
So open source, right? So that's why we used wood because wood is very forgiving. If you make a mistake, you can just get another piece, you can hammer them together, you get your frame. So it's very forgiving. So is
Yeah.
plastic. You just staple it. You get a hole, you just get another sheet. So that's really the idea is that you use materials that are very forgiving and simple, wherein you can have a more direct intervention. Because imagine if you put up a steel structure, you need to plan the shit out of this, right? And then if it doesn't fit together, then okay, you're at a loss. So I think that's the bigger difference that we had.
Um,
And immediate siya. Like anywhere in the province you can get wood. But if you go around anywhere in our country, what do you find lying around? It's wood. So I think for an emergency that is what you need, something that is immediately available.
You mentioned the use of plastic. Baka naman yung sustainability snobs dyan comment doon. So,
yes. I
uh,
was,
Nice.
when,
what would be your was plastic the best solution, or what were you thinking
Um,
of others?
I think people. Okay, so almost every talk I do, I get this question actually. Right. So I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, obviously, we are in a period where we actually have to address this big problem of sustainability, right? But if you look at the problem with plastic, what is the problem with plastic in terms of sustainability? It's not the material. It's, the small pieces of plastic that we discard, right? That fill up, that go to the oceans, that
yes.
litter, and,
Micro, yeah.
yeah, microplastic, right? Our problem is not the material. Our problem is the way it's used in terms of like small disposable wrappers. But if you're looking at how we use it, we're using sheets. Basically, you can't even throw it away even if you want to, because you really just have to find somewhere to put it. It's not something that you can just throw away, right? You basically have to recycle this thing.
Yeah.
So I think that removes the
Yes.
problem with sustainability because actually, and this is something that has to be understood, plastic as a material is more sustainable than paper. It's way more sustainable because plastic takes so much less energy to produce than
Mhm.
paper, right? It's just that we should not have the mindset of disposing, but rather
Yes.
recycling.
Yes. Oo nga naman
Tama naman si
Kasi
Pacoy.
the problem is with the disposal of the material, not the material itself. Eh. And I think plastic can be used over. It can be recycled. It can be used again, diba?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And well, I think like paper in itself, of course, is not bad. It's just that it's more expensive. It's heavier. It takes much more
Mhm.
energy to transport. It takes 10 times more energy to produce a same amount of paper and plastic. So, and then you have to chop off trees.
And I
Yeah.
guess given the situation that we have on hand, well, it's justified.
Yeah, and I think it's an emergency. I don't think we can survive right now without plastic.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
not us, but any other country in this world will not be able to survive without plastic at this moment.
All right,
Thank you.
That's true.
Van.
Okay. And sir, just in case there are any local government units listening or watching us tonight, and if they want to like also use your design in their town or in their institution, how do they go about it, sir?
I think all the plans are available online. They're in a Google Drive. I think the link is in our website and on the EQF Facebook page. Basically, what we're encouraging everyone is to get these drawings, download them. I think a lot of government actually LGUs are actually doing the same thing. So I think they should get
Has
the plan,
Okay.
execute.
has anyone in other countries, or have other countries reached out for those plans that you have?
Yeah, Singapore's built more than us, 3,000 beds,
Mm-mm.
No, I mean
and so I
using
think
your plans.
yeah,
Ah,
exactly. So I
okay.
think this is the first thing that I mean
Mm,
we're actually exporting something to Singapore for a change, right? We are the
Actually,
ones
si,
teaching them.
Wow.
si Architect Alan
so
Cue
pwede
ang
ko bang pang
di ba?
Yeah. Alan is the
Nag-initiate.
one who did it. Yeah, Alan's a good friend. Kasi.
so pwede ko lang pangunahan yung barangay namin and then just download the plans and then construct it here in our barangay.
Yes, feel free.
Para sana naman walang magkaroon ng infection dito. Kapag meron, at least we have the facility already, tama?
Yeah, actually, that's a sad part. I think for us, for me personally, I mean, this project has been a double-sided, double-edged blade, if you may. I think I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to do something that feels really meaningful, as an architect, because for the first time, you're actually doing something that's an immediate impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's also because of the context, like if you look at what the government has been proposing, a lot of people actually don't want to be quarantined there because they just want to go to the hospital. And
Yeah.
these facilities are in the hospitals, they're immediate, they're local. That's the beauty of local. There's a sense of intimacy there. But I think it's also sad that we need private sector to do this. This is something that government we actually just plan to build four of these facilities, and we just kind of like
Oh,
got before we even built the first one, we were flooded with requests now for about 15 or 20 of them. So barang
You
we
know,
were like, yeah, we can't refuse it. You cannot refuse the hospitals at that point, right? I mean, we have to help each other out.
So
But I think
as soon as they caught wind, you were
now,
doing this,
yeah, yeah,
talagang
yeah. Every
request na.
as soon as anyone heard about it, they gave us their request actually. The problem now is like I think the reason why we actually stopped doing the program and just encourage everyone else to do it if they like, is because at this point in time it has to be government action.
Yeah.
You cannot
mhm.
just build this. So like the last few ones we built were about 100 beds. The problem is it's all for government. It's all for their own use. So what about the civilians, right? So I felt bad that I cannot build that the government is not paying for civilian facilities. And so that's why we kind of like stopped doing it actually, because for us, at the end of the day,
You've
the
done
the,
your
the, the
share.
size of the yeah, we've done our share, and the size of the intervention cannot be helped with 16 beds anymore. So the last few ones we built now were about 100 beds or so.
Then you stopped. Actually, now that we're at 74,000 infected,
Exactly right.
well, there's much to say about what the government's doing.
I think the,
yes.
the
And
the leadership in the health sector, needs to be
Yeah.
more visible in terms of what protocol actually to follow.
Yeah.
all right. So I'm actually looking at the website right now. If the You can check it on the website of WTA Design and W2A Architecture and Design Studio on their website, and you can also check it on their Facebook. That's where you can see and download the plans for this emergency quarantine facility. And we hope that we can really use this all over the country in this fight against the pandemic. All right. So, Architect William, actually, we wanted to touch on with the emergency quarantine facility, but we also wanted to talk about the social architecture, which you have been promoting for a lot of years now. So at this point, we would just like to, I think, Kalai, we have some shout outs, and then before we move on with social architecture topic.
Yeah, so I would like to greet lang some of our viewers because we have a lot of viewers because we are live in the Poste page and we are live in the UAP Barasoain chapter page and I have my watch party in my page and I think sa District A2A, right? Sir
Yes.
Pacoy
Yep.
already shared. So I have here my viewers. We have Architect Ruth Danica de los Santos and a good friend of mine, Tristan Severo, and my very beloved coach, Tina Siguenza, Mario Interia, Tita Marisa Sebastian, and a lot more from Poste page. Actually, mas marami. So we have, if I can just
Shout out to
pa-shout
Architect
out.
Al Gonzalez. Last week, go ahead.
Go, go, go. I'm still pulling it up.
Well,
Actually, marami
shout
tayong
out
viewers,
to the people
Architect
from our
William. Eh.
chapter
So,
from UAP.
That's good to know.
What the chapter are you
there.
from?
I'm from Manila Metro chapter.
Oh, okay.
Mm,
Di ba, Architect William, you are appointed as, sorry, hindi ako nakapag-research about this, pero I heard, I saw your poster. You are actually an officer sa UAP, di ba? National Executive.
I'm part of a committee. I'm part of a committee. Yeah.
Okay,
Pero
sorry.
would you take on chairmanship in UAP National?
It depends on what depends on the committee, I guess.
Oo nga.
Yeah, I
Minsan,
think it's internal affairs eh. Parang
kasi
ganun yata.
minsan Kalay and Van, when you're part of UAP National, it actually takes up more time than your work. So maraming nag-serve na
True.
sa national na parang of course, it's heartfelt. We do it, but then again, it does take a lot of it does take up a lot of your time.
Mhm.
Yes. So
Yeah.
before we move on, shout out to our viewers on the UAP Barasoain page, to Architect Ana Gonzalez, Architect Al Gonzalez, si Architect Roger Santos, and Architect Jose. All right, we are still on our third run for the Poste podcast with Architect William T. We are talking about social architecture and what the emergency quarantine facility that Architect William T's team spearheaded. So moving on with our topic, Architect William, ako, you know, sharing lang, there was a time when I was walking in Bonifacio High Street and then I saw this, how do I describe it? Like a stair that goes nowhere, parang hagdan pero wala siyang pupuntahan. And then when I
Mm.
was close to it, I realized, bookstore ba ito? And then I realized it's actually a library. And then yun pala, that was one of your projects which was the Bookstop, tama ba, sir?
Yes, yes. Actually, you hit
Then,
on
so
like, yeah,
yun lang eh. So that time I didn't realize that it was like parang a project of yours, or it was a project of an architect. I thought it was just like a pakulo by BGC. But it was a really, really cool, and it was a really, really nice design that parang a library is like pumupunta na sa tao instead of us going to the library. Parang the library na yung pumunta sa tao, di ba? Where people gather around. And I think that was like one of your takes for social architecture, right, sir?
yeah. Actually, that was the first actually proof of concept that kind of like started us into the social architecture agenda. Um, well, if you want me to go into it, the idea really was like, I think if you do any talk or any lecture or join any discussion, right, the one of the main talking points is what is Filipino architecture,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is our universal conundrum, our universal question.
Mhm.
And like I said, for me, our architecture is really more about program. And so I was trying to
Okay.
figure this out for myself, trying to find, my own sensibilities in terms of architecture. And I realized, because I grew up in Tondo, in the heart of Manila, right? So I'm used to walking around the streets. I'm used to seeing people everywhere, seeing very casual observations. I think Tondo is still one of the best places to observe how people actually make use of architecture, if you may. And one of the things you notice in Manila is that, for example, we have a sari sari store everywhere. And even in front of a supermarket, you'll find a sari sari store. And people actually go to the sari sari store, right? And not the supermarket. You have basketball courts everywhere, especially before. And actually, the cars just slow down for, when they see people playing. Kung may bola, may bata, di ba? You see a chapel,
Yes.
everywhere in our shopping malls, in our hospitals, sometimes in street corners, small alleys. There's a grotto, um, and I think also this idea that the whole country, the entirety of the Philippines, is actually divided into multiple barangays,
Mm-hmm.
and this is very evident in Manila, where every street basically is a barangay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're familiar with Tondo, every street
Yes.
is its own barangay, diba? So I felt like this is something that's very Filipino, this fragmentation actually of institutions, because it makes institutions more accessible to us, as a people. And so we prefer the immediate, the convenience. We prefer a place without rigidity, with which is much more informal. And I think that's really how we kind of like started this idea of like, okay, if the church and the state has figured out, that the best way for them to reach the people is through these like um small network of architecture, why can't we do the same for other institutions like a library, for example, and a museum, and now the EQF for hospitals, basically, right? And so I think this idea that architecture must be something that is, edifical, something that is very dominant, and domineering. We wanted to build something that is more accessible, more human, more immediate. And so it's almost like the difference between having, your desktop computer and your mobile phone,
Hmm.
right? The moment
Yes.
we got the mobile phone, the PC just kind of like, got set aside
True.
because there's just an
Yeah.
immense, gap there. And so that's what we felt like. And we tried to do an experiment called the Bookstop Project. When we did the Bookstop Project, we were reminded how every time we design a library, people will actually ask you, or at least the proponents would ask you, so, architect, how can we get, people to still visit the library? Because the problem is kids now, maybe they just like to read things on the internet, on the web. They don't like books anymore.
And
And so I felt like me myself personally, at least, I really love books. I like the act of, I like the smell of paper. The how you can turn pages, even the sound sometimes when it's crisp. So I
me
think
too.
the problem with the library is actually the format, right? The format or the architecture in this case, the platform in which you actually
Mm.
present a library to the people, because libraries are so out of touch with our reality, wherein we actually want very casual interactions with our friends. So if you
Mhm.
go to a big library or one of the major
Mhm.
libraries, they might be the most beautiful space in the world, but you don't feel very comfortable, right?
Hmm.
So parang this
Very
led us
true.
to this idea of why we built the bookstop. It was just a proof of concept actually. Like, okay, let's try it out. Oh, it works. So let's move it to a different place. Okay, it works. So we were moving it around the city, trying to see. We were getting numbers. We were getting the data, how many books we were turning over a day, and we were actually turning over about, I think, 100, 150 books a day with that small library. And I think it works because there's a system of honesty in place, right? Everything is open, it's accessible to everyone.
Yes.
There's no one to tell you
Mhm.
what you can or cannot do.
Mhm.
And I honestly think if you really need a book and you want it that bad, you really do deserve to get it, right? Because information or knowledge should be publicly accessible. So we felt like, we wanted to make a statement in terms of like our society needs libraries. It's not that people don't want libraries. It's just that society has not deemed to build them, or like they actually, there's actually a law where that says
Yes.
every city, every municipality requires a library, needs a public library. But then some of them you can find in a closet inside City Hall. So that is why there is a certain, detachment, with us and knowledge. Like I think Filipinos have this sort of like, because we have not built these libraries that kind of like foster civic awareness.
Yeah.
you know Libraries are centers of awareness, di ba? So like they're like, in fact, they're more than books. They're community centers where people gather, where you actually build, this like, citizenry, right? You
Hmm.
need a stronger citizenry, more knowledgeable, and who gets more information than the casual news article or Facebook article, if you may. So I think you need to give people who need them the most access. So, architects, we always like to talk about accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Okay, for the physically disabled and all that. But actually, a lot of our buildings, are discriminating or inaccessible to a big part of our population, right? For example, if let's say you don't have a proper ID, I don't think you can enter most of our institutions. Let's
Hmm.
say you don't have a good pair of jeans or even shoes, you cannot enter these institutions. Let's say you don't have time, you're too busy, you have all the money in the world, but you're too busy to go out of your way, go through an hour of traffic just to get to a library. You don't have access to these institutions. So I think a lot of people are actually prevented from having access, to what they need for them to have a more, I think, a more holistic, I think, lifestyle, if you may. So all we do is work, home, shopping.
Yeah.
Mhm.
because our
That's
public
true.
civic spaces have not been built properly to serve our needs actually.
So now that we're in this
Okay. And
situation, okay, go ahead, Van.
no, no, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
You've been speaking about the Bookstop Project. Of course, now we're in a situation where would you say it wouldn't be relevant anymore because actually, I like what you mentioned about libraries being uh, civic spaces, public gathering spaces. Now that it's being somewhat preventive or prevented, the government's preventing people from doing it. What would you change or what would you recommend that people do?
Um, I'm actually very cautious, about the ideas about what the new normal might be. These ideas that say we have to segregate and isolate everyone. I think humanity just isn't built for that.
True, true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I have a point here, I'll get to it later, but the idea is that I don't think we should panic.
Mm-hmm.
I think we
Okay.
have to be more careful and more, but that's the thing, you need information. You have to be more aware about what you're doing, right? So one of
That's
our projects actually that we proposed to the LGUs of Manila and Quezon City, which we wanted to donate to them actually, was to build community street parks.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea is that we have so many of these. So because this is nonprofit, this was a donation. We have so many of these residential streets that we have closed off from public, right? And so we said, right now your option is to stay in your house, which is the safest, or you're standing around the sidewalk in bunches, or you're going to the shopping mall, right? So we said we needed to provide a better alternative. And so we said, what if we close off these streets and make it into a public space just for the residents of that neighborhood? So by doing so, what you're trying to build is imagine if every community had one of these, then you can enhance the community bubble,
yes.
right? Because they don't have to go out of their way to, just to relax or, just to have distance between themselves. Because we have to admit a big part of our vulnerable population do not have the necessary living conditions for them to socially distance,
Yes.
right? We have six people living
That's
in a
true.
room, in a bedroom, right? So they simply do not have the means. So this is public space. This is the use of public space. And the reality is that there are more people with cars than there are who have cars, right?
True.
So can we not reclaim these streets temporarily for the public? And well, therein where it goes against. So I think that was really our idea in that we can put a library there, a small library or like an information center. You can put a trade hall so that the people who sell stuff on the sidewalk they can actually sell it in the trade hall there. You can have
Mm-hmm.
like a small gardening area for like a vegetable garden and herbs. We actually wanted to provide like entertainment in terms of like Wi-Fi access and like a large screen TV for Netflix shows and all that. And then we wanted to cover the street and just give shade so that people would actually hang out there.
Where would
But
this be, for example? What
we proposed actually Quezon City agreed, but then the bureaucracy just led us to like 10 meetings and
and wala na.
but the mayor actually wanted to do it. She actually agreed to it. But then we get told to go talk to this person and that person and
Yeah.
I think most of our mayors, like when I met Mayor Isco, he was happy about it. When I met Mayor Joy, she was happy about it. But then when you get past to the different agencies, different departments, then it gets lost in translation. Eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So I think
actually the same experience we have here locally because we're all from Bulacan. And
okay.
ako mismo, I'm from Malolos, and our chapter I wouldn't say spearheaded, but we tried doing some projects with the local government, and before it can get implemented, ang daming pasikot-sikot eh.
Ano?
Alam mo
Yeah.
yun, we were there to help. We were there to help. We were there to provide something to give a better option for the people. Yet when we go through it, parang I wouldn't say butas ng karayom, pero ang layo ng dadaanan mo just to get something done. Sabi mo, like you said, uh, things aren't getting done.
Yeah, I think also that's why maybe the next generation of architects should look at careers in government for them to be able to make change happen. I really feel strongly about that in terms of like maybe these are jobs that we should want,
Yeah.
because we always teach our students or the younger generation not to want to work in government. But actually these are places where you can actually make change happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
That's
think
true.
the problem is the politicians. Actually, a lot of times the problems are actually the people in the middle.
Yep.
So, if you're actually there in government, you can actually make things happen
I
if you
think
want to.
I think by occupation, it's an occupational trait of architects to think or to want something better and to opt for
Yes.
always opt for the better than what we currently have. We always want to make things better.
Well, yeah, change is constant,
That
right? And if you're gonna change, might as well change for the
Yeah,
better.
that's true. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, you were talking about that proposal for Quezon City, sir. Ang naisip ko bigla, this is like the modern version of a Roman forum, diba? Where people gather
Exactly.
around and do a lot of functions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, sir, kasi I've been listening to you since kanina and you've been talking about this principle of engaging the public, sense of belongingness, and then accessibility of different parang uh, people from society. I mean, itong social architecture, has it always been your design principle?
I think it's something that we built together through time. So it's a set of ideas that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're kind of like all related in terms of like they're a very humanist, very socialist way of looking
Yes.
at architecture and planning. In terms of urban planning and design,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also a factor. But I think it's built through time, through experience also, because we've been able to kind of like test out it. So I think as an office, we're very experimental. And I think for me as an architect, it is important for you not just to draw and design. You have to be able to execute and actually see what the
Yes.
effects of your ideas are. So, for example, we did the Bookstop project, and we were really very happy about it. Like, in fact, we actually held on to it for years, even if we just meant to do it for 4 months, I think. And so, because like I think it's really like one of the like most unexpected moments I had there when I put up the first Bookstop. We actually built it for we actually put it in Intramuros. And all these like street
Mm-hmm.
kids, I remember we were delivering books one night, and like the kids just sort of like ran at us, right? And they were like said, "Oh, are there books there for children?"
True.
And then when we brought them out, they were like, making they were like running away with them and all that. And I was telling them like, guys, this is a library. I mean,
Very,
they're free for you. And they're like, ah, talaga, libre. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, they're free. So they were like, can I bring it home? Yeah, yeah, bring it home. And so I think after a while, after bringing home maybe 10 books, they kind of realized, why would I bringing home these books when I can actually just get them here? And the sad part is that we always complain about street kids running around, but they just don't have anywhere to go to.
Hmm.
Actually, like, so
wow.
these kids
Yeah.
were hanging around that library, right? These streets. So, and every minute, you can take away a child from the streets and put them beside the book.
That's
Win na yun eh, di
success.
ba?
Win.
Yeah, that's a win na yun for society. So I think that was very important for me and kind of like encourage us to kind of like, okay, so if libraries can be like this, then what else, right? And so I think we did the Museo del Prado with the Spanish embassy. So the idea was like, oh, we have an exhibit, we have a
Yes.
traveling exhibit, and then we said like, basically that is what a museum is, right? Because they were bringing in like these like life-size prints from Madrid, and they wanted to like show them off, right? And so we kind of like
Yes.
came up with this like very simple stand that kind of like just had canopies, so you can actually give the idea of a shape or a form. When you put them together, you can actually. So we said like, you can line them up, it becomes a corridor in a museum. You can build a room with them, it becomes a gallery. You can actually, yeah, that's the museo, right? You can actually put one centerpiece and that becomes a centerpiece, right? But the idea is that this is the best way to enjoy art. I
Hmm.
think we've all been to museums, especially when you're traveling. And when you go to a museum, you almost have like a checklist, right? Oh, I have to see this painting, I have to see that, I have to see this. But that might not be the best way to enjoy art, right? Art becomes relevant when it's part of your daily life, and that is how you get you absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you have a space like this, like in on your way home or on your way to work, right? You pass through it, you see a painting today, you enjoy this painting, you kind of like become creative today about it, and then get a new idea. And then coming home, you see another painting, maybe a restful one, something that gives solace. But what this means is that it makes art accessible to everyone. The taho vendor can go there walking around just looking. And so that is really what museums should be doing, right? I mean, there will always be a time and place for
Yes.
archival libraries, for museums that preserve, but there should always be places that showcase or like
Yeah.
share knowledge and art, diba? So yeah, I think the museo was another project that we did for that. Um, and then the EQF happened. So that kind of like,
Yeah.
and
One
even
thing I can just
even before the EQFs, right? You were seeing all these mobile palenques being built,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
yes.
that is the same train of thought. Eh. Like I said, it's very Filipino talaga to do these things. Eh. So I think it comes naturally to us.
I have a question. Is this somehow influenced by the roving library by sino yun, yung Times that Filipino from Tondo as well?
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
one. Eh.
that guy.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but um, actually, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually build a library.
Ah, okay.
So it was not meant to be mobile. We were moving it around because we were testing the idea. We were trying to gather data in different, because we're architects, right? So we
Yeah.
want to get the data in different neighborhoods to see which neighborhoods actually want a library.
So
So, but it was not meant to move around talaga.
so which is it?
Sorry. Actually, all of them. Actually, that's why I'm saying. Like, I think the highest were like turning over about 200 books a day. The lowest about 70 books a day.
Oh.
Wow.
So so
Yeah.
so this answers the question: is the library dead?
Apparently not, right?
Di ba? Apparently not. Apparently not. That's very good to know. Van, nakamute ka.
I think that library is still very much alive, pero I think with the growth or and the development of our society, parang it kind of just transformed into another platform, diba? I mean, we still read books. I still read books, but not just in an ordinary library setup, but sometimes I gather around with friends and then we just read these books that we have parang ganun. So it's more of a social interaction and then reading books then. And one thing I can describe this projects ni Architect William, this bookstop, this museo uh, project is that it's very attractive to the public. It has a sense of it, parang it has some sense of curiosity. And with that, it really engages the public to come and see these projects. Is that what you have in mind, Architect William?
Yeah, one thing that I think same thing with what we were trying to do with the community street parks and even the EQX is that you want people to actually know what this is, right? So for example, with the library, maybe they're not used to finding a library in the middle of the park,
Mm-mm.
but then all you need to do is to get them to come and see what it
Yes.
is. So it has to be attractive enough for them to actually be curious about it, and then once they're there, then it's a captured audience. I think same with the community street parks. We need to put program into our open spaces so that people actually go to them and actually realize that okay, public space can be good and can
Mhm.
be useful and we can enjoy them. And same with the EQFs, that you need to build something that looks nice and clean so that people actually feel safe, right? Because it, and that's why we were using a lot of transparencies actually, that you can actually see inside and you're not scared of what's happening inside. I think it's a
Mhm.
very human thing, this like
Yes, that's true.
knowledge, right, about what's going on, I think.
All the projects that you've
And I
mentioned
think
so
that's one
far,
of the characteristics ng ano eh.
from the projects that from all the projects that you've mentioned so far, what made me think of it was, what about security? As you know, merong students, merong, I wouldn't say students, merong younger people in our society, na if they see something out there na some a little bit nicer, they kind of want to trash it. I mean, has that happened to begin with, and how
So
did you address that?
security for these facilities at least is communal. What we mean by this is that by making something very visible and open, you're actually parang outsourcing security to everyone in the community,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you, that's why bad things happen in dark alleys and not in broad
Yes,
streets.
yes, yes.
So that's why we feel like by making it more open, you're actually securing the space.
Mm. Okay. Actually, sir, what siguro Van was trying to say kanina is all of this, yung characteristics ng lahat ng mga na naumpisahan yung project and the projects you put up is all about social architecture. Kasi nga, yun nga yung pinaka-advocacy nyo eh, di ba? So, designing everything, for me kasi, what I read about social architecture, kasi nga, bago siya sa akin eh. Narinig ko lang talaga siya nung webinar mo sa UAP Singapore. And I actually learned about it na, what I actually learned about it is, it's a study of how the behavior of people is dun sa design na ginagalawan nila or this space na ginagalawan nila. So, parang with all of these projects that you came up with, um, could you say that this is how social architecture is, or what this is what social architecture is?
I think what we're doing, we're trying to, we are, well, actually, we are. I'm actually in the process of trying to write a book, but it seems to be,
Put
it
on.
doesn't seem, yeah, it
Daming
keeps getting put
ginagawa.
on hold. Yeah, but the idea is really is that I think this is social architecture for us. This is my definition of it. So for example, for me, I think I have like three or four things, or maybe five things that define it for me. Um, like I said, I always say social intimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what this means is that it's something that is easily accessible, that is there. So we're trying to shift our relationship with our institutions or our places, where we actually don't have to go to a church, but instead the chapel is there. So
Mm-mm.
so like I said, it's like having a mobile phone that it's everywhere. It's with you everywhere you go, right? And I think by making architecture this way, it becomes more intimate because it's immediate. That's why your relationship with your phone is almost personal versus your relationship with, let's say, your desktop. Right? So it's the same idea. I think that's really what we're trying for in terms of intimacy.
Yeah.
That it's something you can actually touch, in a way.
Mm-mm.
We
That's true.
Me personally,
And
I'm very much sorry. I'm
go
very
ahead, sir.
much
Go ahead,
against
please.
I'm very much against segregation. So I
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
think that's why I want that my actually the most important point for me there is freedom of movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like building barrier-free,
Ah,
architecture, trying to open everything up, making it accessible to everyone. So I think when you try to, like I said, before you get inside the museum, you have to go through a gate, you have to go through a door, there's security, there's a librarian, you have to register, you have to get information from a board or a brochure, right? Then you have an audio guide or whatever. I mean, it's just not very human
yes,
for
that's
me
true.
to be directed this way,
Yes.
right? So
Actually,
Structured.
compared to other countries, I think we are the most secure country because we have a security guard at every stop and every entrance, wherever we go locally. I've been to Singapore. Nakita ko dun, it's you can walk freely practically everywhere, and even sa states, even dito, even in other Asian countries. Pero sa atin, ang tindi ng security eh. Laging merong distrust of the public yung private owners ng establishment towards anything, I guess.
Mhm.
I,
Actually,
I
sir,
think
may
we need to
naalala
start
ako.
trusting each other. I
Mhm.
think we need to start
Yeah.
trusting each other as a society.
Yeah, I
Right.
cannot agree more. Actually,
That's true.
sir, ako yung may naalala ko dun sa sinabi mo na
I think
most
that,
secure eh, 'di
yeah,
ba?
yeah, yeah.
Parang sa isang video na may isang turista sa Singapore, I don't know kung saan, basta sa ibang bansa, hindi dito sa Pilipinas. Inopen niya yung bag niya, tas she was looking for a guard na magche-check ng bag, nawala. So parang ako, Pilipino to. Okay, parang ganun. Yung naalala ko sinabi ni Sir Pacoy. Yes, Van, you were saying?
No, yun din eh kasi nawala kasi
Diba?
parang I remember during our first run, we were talking about security din ng mga public parks
Mm-mm.
and other public spaces din dito sa Philippines, and we were comparing it with the security ng mga public spaces naman pero established by a private company, yung ganon. And
Yeah, I think you cannot
Sir
fault
Architect William,
private
one
companies
of the
about that.
parang projects.
Sorry, Sir William, medyo delay lang yung dating natin. Nasa ano ata ito eh.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that you cannot fault I think private enterprise, to be fearful, but you can definitely fault public spaces for fencing themselves off.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I think the most immediate thing you can do is every time you see a public park that's fenced off, that we have to talk about it, right? So that is
Yeah,
something that can be done by any architect in any place in this country.
I can totally agree, sir. Pero yun nga eh, parang back to the question ni Sir Pacoy, yung security is always a question. Pero because of what you did, we can actually prove na, hey, kahit open to, wala namang nangyayari. Diba? Parang it's always a discipline of people. And that's how human is. So parang yun nga, pag nilagyan mo ng barrier yan, iisipin ng tao, may something sa loob, sige nga. Pero pag open yan, it's actually open. You can see everything. Ay, wala naman pala akong makukuha dyan. Di ba? Parang gano'n.
Actually, let's move on. Si Van has been trying to ask you about Anthology. You are
Ah, yeah.
the current. Were you the founder, or are you the also the
Yeah.
current director for it?
Yeah, I'm the founder and chairman of Anthology. And yeah, I guess that's another aspect of social architecture, right?
Yeah.
By trying to bring everyone together, trying to collaborate, and so how we did it is basically by making architecture fun. If you've been to Anthology and you've been to any other conference, any other architecture conference, you'll know what I'm saying. But if you've not, then you should try to go to the next one when it comes up. But the main idea is that we have to celebrate architecture, because if we love architecture, it is something we have to celebrate, and celebrations have to be fun.
Yeah.
So that's really the main idea behind it. And we're using this celebration to bring everyone together through positive experiences, right? When you bond through positive experience, then you become friends. And me personally, I've found so many friends through Anthology. I think we've had so many interesting discussions because of it, and
Is
that's
it
really what I want out of it.
is it a one-time event, or has it been going on for years?
It's been going on. I think we just did. I don't know if it's the fourth or fifth one. I think this year.
And has it been halted because of the pandemic, or are you?
Well, we actually squeaked through last February.
Ah,
Oo,
Just
nung
okay.
before.
February lang.
Just before.
We
Yeah.
actually, hindi kami ako tsaka yung mga colleagues ko, we wanted to join sana Anthology, pero hindi kami umabot eh. So, sad, but I'm hoping we can go next year. So,
Yeah. Someday. If not next year, then the next.
next year, yeah, naman.
So
Kasi I've been reading a lot about it. Parang sobrang saya lang yata nito.
Oh, nabasa ko
No,
rin
it's
dun
just
sa
about
ano
enjoying.
sa page. Eh. It's about architecture, it's about art and general design and everything. What do you have what do you have in Anthology? You have music, you have what do you have? Stores or
No, no, it's really architecture. So basically, imagine having a music festival with
only
multiple
for
stages. Yeah, with multiple stages, but instead of having musicians or bands, you have architects on stage.
Mm-mm.
interesting. Would you be open to have it in other places in the country or like let's say even Bulacan?
Well, the reason we actually do it in Intramuros, like I said, is I always feel like we need to revisit Manila, as a society, because I think Manila has been neglected, and we need kind of like, the problem sometimes with our metropolis, with Metro Manila, is
Yeah.
everyone wants to be everything. We have
Mm.
17 different cities that do not have a coordinated effort to do anything smart, right? But Manila really is the cultural heart. So if we want to build a cultural center, for our society, I think it should be there. Once we have that strong, then we can branch out, right? But I think we have to build up Manila first as the cultural center of our country. So that's why whenever we do something, we do it in Manila.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we've taken too much of your time.
No
I
worries, it's good.
I believe you're still working tonight. Where are you broadcasting from, by the way?
No, I'm actually working at home now. I just actually arrived when I joined you guys. But
Ah,
I'm based in San Juan in Green Hills.
okay.
Okay.
So anyway, we'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for the knowledge that we got from you. And do you have anything else that you'd like to promote? We have well, I'm not sure how many viewers we have right now, but we do get a good number of views along the way over the days.
Well, I don't think we're promoting anything. But I do want to say that, well, I just wrote an article about this. That's why I think it's fresh in my mind. Is that I think our passion for architecture, right? It comes through two things. It comes from the wonder of discovery, and that's what makes ideas valuable and important, right? The other thing is this romance of the impossible.
Mm,
one of my heroes is Don Quixote, right? Like tilting against windmills,
yeah,
doing things even if people say they can't be done. I think that's important for an architect to embrace, right? Because if you don't, then you will always just kind of like feel sad about your architecture. And so I think we have to romanticize the impossible. We have to have wonder about, the wonder of discovery. And I think if we can keep these two things, then we can have a healthy, passion for architecture as we grow older.
yeah. Where can people read your articles?
It's every Saturday now during COVID on at Empire.
Ah, I see. I see. Okay, and
Yeah.
I just want to point out one last thing that I discovered from stalking you on Facebook. First of all, I see you're a geek and a nerd from all the
Yeah.
comic book stuff that I see there. But also, you're the only one. You're the only profile page that I've seen with a life event that says "I got a pet in 2007." And with that, we'll let you go. Again, thank you very much. It was good to meet. I guess I haven't. We didn't really meet in college, but I know a bunch of your classmates. Sila Edison, sila Dan. I'm
They're my barkada.
yeah, sila yung mga kayosi ko sa labas dati kasama sila
Yeah,
Russo. so
yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thank you, Kalai.
Yeah, thank you sir once again kasi ako talagang naging fan mo ko ever since I've heard of what you did and so I fangirl moment. I've talked to you about this pero sabi ko parang andun pa rin yung fangirl moment ko and starstruck moment pa rin kasi andun pa rin ako sa, amazed pa rin ako sa ginagawa ninyo. And I am really inspired and, alam mo yun, parang moving forward with all of this COVID, pandemic, and everything else, there is actually good in people. And I believe na architecture is about that, good in people. And so, good design for good people. So, parang ganun.
I
And, yun lang.
I'd like to say good job, with this. I think this is the most enjoyable like format for me. That's actually why we did art anthology also. I think
Mhm.
architecture is best done through discussion.
Yeah.
Better than I've been doing presentations for like the past few months, and they're all online anyway, right? They're all the same
Yeah.
thing. But I think this is the best way to consume and explore architecture together. And so, yeah, I'm thankful you guys are doing this. I think it's a very
Thank
healthy
you.
format. Hopefully you continue with
Thank
this
you.
platform.
Yeah.
Wow,
Thank you
thank
so
you. Just
much.
that
Am I
just
back?
validates everything. Yes, you are back, Van, and we are just about to say
Finally.
goodbye to Architect Liam.
I'm sorry, Architect Relab. I had a network error, so I had to restart everything here on my end. But thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It has been like a very, very informative run for us. We called our episodes run, not actually episode. Yun. And it was really fun learning about the emergency quarantine facility and this social architecture, which has been a concept for several years now. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation, sir.
Speaking of
All
which,
right.
Architect William, a few episodes down, guest namin si building official architect Edison Ching Padilla.
Sige, ay mo kay Mang Ed. Sige. Ano mo.
Will do, will do.
Sipahin mo na rin.
Okay, thank you very
Alright.
much.
Thank
All
you
right.
very
Good
much,
night,
Architect.
everyone.
Good night, good
Thank
night.
you,
Good
Okay.
night,
thank you,
sir.
sir. Good night, sir.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
All
so
right.
Okay.
It was a fun,
that
fun run,
Saya?
fun episode. Saya.
Fun run literally sa'yo.
No,
You
kasi
always run.
I'm so naaaliw ako. Like what I said, we call our episodes run and not actually episodes, diba? So this is our third run instead
Oo
of
nga
saying
eh.
this is our third episode.
Oo nga eh.
Actually, for those who are interested or for those interested in this information or what Poste podcast is about, this is a very organic thing. We just talked about it a few weeks ago, and now we're on our
Yes.
third episode already. Like I said, Poste has been going on, but I haven't been producing much. But I have been wanting to get into this, and thankfully, these guys are joining me and have decided to join me. And if not for them, we wouldn't have Architect William T. And wow, I was personally amazed at some of the things he said.
Yes,
Prior
me too.
to having him on the show, this whole concept of social architecture had always been, for me, had always been parang more of a social business, social, it was more of,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say charity, but it's closer to charity than what he described. And you know, I wouldn't say it's foreign to me. The notion is foreign to me, but it's, I guess it's opened my mind to a different approach of
Hmm.
doing architecture.
That's
Yeah,
true.
tama.
Kayo
Ay,
ba?
personally, yung social architecture, until talaga nung webinar, sorry na ano lang ako. He was asking, is it okay if I share the post the video? Of course, sir. Wait lang. If you're watching, yes.
Of
Or
course.
I will just yun. So, yun lang. Parang ako foreign din siya sa akin, sir. Actually, I've never heard of it until nung nabasa ko siya sa UAP Singapore. So, parang I was so interested. Tapos si William T pa. So, parang okay, I'll attend this. Parang, tapos dun ko lang na-realize na yun pala yung kagaya nung sabi mo, Van, about dun sa, I forgot the term already, pero yung architecture na thesis mo, parang ganun din siya. Kasi I've been designing for people, or yung ano tawag dito, my design philosophy kasi is designing the dream. So parang bringing the dream into reality. So parang it's designing for the people who use it. to who use the space. So parang ako, yun, it dictates, parang I can connect it to what I said
This is
nung
like
first episode natin eh. So parang ako parang ang dami ko ng parang ako na-validate yung philosophy ko na good architecture doesn't always mean aesthetically pleasing, but it is really about how people behave in the space. Is it good? Do they have a good
yes,
experience
that's
about
true.
it? Bad experience ba? That's architecture for me. Parang ganun.
Pero yun nga, tama rin sinabi niya eh. It's sad that, as much as we want to do good for the public, we want to do good, offer good things to the general public.
You can only do so much.
Yes,
Mm-mm.
not only can we do so much, but in the case of the quarantine facilities, they've built several. I'm forgetting how many they were able to build, but they stopped because parang nakikita nilang, for lack of a better term, nalalamangan sila ng gobyerno, di ba?
Mm-mm.
Dapat responsibility ng government,
Well,
pero bakit umaasa sa donations? In that case, yung ginagawa nila Architect William T. Di ba?
Yeah.
that's
Yun
true.
na nga.
Yeah, ako for me, my learning in this episode is basically, you know, looking back doon sa ating first run, I've always mentioned na knew of these I knew of these concepts like Kalai. I was talking about salutogenic when nung first run, and then on our second run we had regenerative architecture, and then tonight we had social architecture. So these three concepts I knew about them for so long, pero I don't know the actual term. Like
Mhm.
um,
Yes, actually.
you know, back, 'di ba? Kasi nakakatuwa, like one of the things that one of the titles na gusto ko sanang i-pitch nung college for the thesis was I wanted to use, and this is a crazy idea that I had back when I was young. I really wanted to use the idea of chismis in the Philippines to turn it into something that's parang a place of gathering. No, I'm just using the term chismis, but it's basically the concept is basically gathering people, social interaction, and stuff like that. So yun eh. So kaya nung pinag-uusapan natin to kanina, I was really looking back. O parang nung college ay gusto kong sabihin yon, pero ayoko lang talagang bakit chismis naman of all things, 'di ba? But the idea was about social interaction, then about human behavior, 'di ba? And so I never knew about social architecture as a term before, but I knew it as a concept.
It's all
Mhm.
about
Tama.
You know,
the role of architects here is all about creating sociopetal spaces. Di ba? Sociopetal talaga, na
yes.
where
And tama,
everyone's
that's true.
invited, the community is invited to participate and to mingle with each other, which
Mm-mm.
is especially in the digital age, keeps on getting forgotten,
That's
especially
true.
for the younger kids, who are or who have grown up and who have lived with tablets from the get go. Tayo naman kasi, well, at least ako alam ko, dumaan ako sa analog eh. Kayo, hindi ko alam.
Kasi medyo
Medyo
ako
pa.
I'm guilty.
Ako
Guilty na ako
din.
dun
Dumaan ako
sa
sa
ano.
typewriter.
Uy, naabutan ko yun. Gumagamit yung nanay ko nun. Pero mas heavy na ako dun sa digital part eh. So, I'm guilty. Guilty
Yeah,
ako.
Yung
it's all about the
nanay
analog
mo,
life.
go back then.
All
So,
right.
gumamit
That's
ako
true.
nun.
And
Gumamit ako nun.
we are talking about social architecture, and nabanggit mo, Sir Pacoy, about the roles of an architect sa society. I think that just to like end our run for tonight, I actually gusto ko sana itong tanungin kay Architect William kanina, pero technicalities happen. But I think let's end this run by answering this question. I don't want to go around the table. What for us um, is what for you is your role in the society as an architect or as an individual? Who wants to go first?
Ang hirap naman tanong mo.
Miss Universe naman ata yan,
Sige,
Jan.
sige. Mauna na akong sumagot kasi ako naman gumawa ng tanong. So, you know, kasi naririnig ko sinabi kanina ni Architect William that one of the basic thing that we do as an architect is to provide shelter, and that's really true. Um,
Mhm.
you know, pero for me kasi architect's role is basically providing shelter, and that encompasses a lot or a lot of things that we do in the industry. But for me, whatever you are, regardless if you are an architect or whatever industry that you are in, what you are is basically your role in the society. You know, I think that we have socially developed as a species and have grown to become parang dependent to one another na each and every industry or a job parang caters to a certain need of another being. And for us as an architect, our role in the society is to provide shelter, diba? Um, for whatever purpose it might serve the society, be it in a hospital, be it a house, be it a school or whatever. And yun nga, like I said kanina, it encompasses all the services that we give from design to construction to maintenance and like to everything. So for me, providing shelter.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go next. Sa akin naman, it's more rooted in me as a person eh. Kasi for one, I guess right now my role is to inform. Through as you've
Yeah.
seen as you've seen in the chapter, I've been always on Facebook. I've always been as having been president of our chapter, ako yung nagre-relay ng information sa inyo lahat. um, I take that as innate in me, having been or being a third generation educator from my grandparents on my mom's side, but
Mhm.
also having been in architecture and urban design and urban planning rather. I've before I got into the elections in 2019, I've believed in policy. I've enjoyed
Mm.
policy. I wouldn't want to say enjoying policy, but I've seen what policy can do. And my father was a politician. Baka hindi pa kayo pinapanganak nung last siyang nasa office. And so I thought it was it was I guess my calling or something to having joined into in the 2019 elections. But
Mhm.
my goal was simple. Like what we discussed today with Architect William, the role of architects or the occupational
Mhm.
trait that we all, architects all have is wanting something better. It's finding solutions, finding better solutions for something that's wrong. And that's kumbaga sa baon, that's what would have been my baon if had I won in politics. Yun lang yung baon ko. And whether I make the right or wrong decisions, that's yun yung goal ko. Ikaw, Kalay.
Tapos ka na. Ako, ako iniisip ko pa talaga. Pero, thank
Pang Miss Universe sasagot din dapat.
wait lang.
Si Raulo ka, Van eh. Tignan mo, naging madrama tuloy yung sagot ko.
Wait lang. Lalampasan ko yung drama mo. Pero, first of all, Van, thank you for that wonderful question.
That wonderful question.
Yeah. Pero ayun, so ako kasi, being in this love and hate relationship, I must admit, I have a love and hate relationship with our profession personally. Kasi matagal na akong kumbaga tumiwalag, tapos bumalik, tapos tumiwalag uli, tapos bumalik na naman. So parang, yun nga, love and hate. Tapos, um, actually, yung realization na to, what I will be sharing is, I already shared with my friends in our firm. Pero, um, it's a realization that is coming in ever since I started with the profession again. So parang yun nga 'di ba nung Saturday we had this induction tapos nagsalita si Dr. Carl Balita. Yun, it struck me like lightning kasi it was a validation of why I came back to the profession. Now, yung
Tapos
ang
tumiwala.
dami kasing nangyari, 'di ba? Ang daming si Lloyd Cadena, tapos ang daming reactions about it, the Toblerone stairs. So parang
That
from all of
that
that,
Lloyd Cadena thing.
let's not go there.
You know what?
It's in the past already.
And I have something to say about that Lloyd Cadena thing.
Sige, I was about to say na ano can we like spend like kasi this has been a hot topic issue
Oh,
and
let's
even
spend
us as a chat,
10
we are
minutes talking about it.
let's spend
Okay,
and let's share
ako
our
muna. O sige, tapusin mo
Wait
na
lang,
si Kalai.
tapusin mo muna ako. Grabe, nagdadrama na ako eh. Sama-sama na ako
Okay.
ganun.
Go ahead.
Yun nga, parang the reason why I came back to this profession is I realized na yung role natin as architects is very important to the community kasi it doesn't really mean na architects tayo we do work beautifully, we do aesthetics, ganyan, we erect houses that are beautiful, visually pleasing, but our role really is to make yung house na yon a home and not just a place na nakatayo dyan, not that it's just only convenient to live in, but yung space na someone or that person who live in there, they can call it their own. So parang it is designed for them. So yun yung advocacy, I can say advocacy or yung principle that I am going through right now. And realization, validated, di ba? So parang kanina sabi ni Architect William, nagustuhan niya yung format natin, yung platform natin, and it only validates what we do. Na
Yes.
this is good, di ba?
Oo nga. Kaya maganda yung sinabi niya yun. Okay ngayon.
Okay na, di
Lloyd
ako
Cadena.
drunk.
Si Lloyd Cadena.
Okay,
Okay,
sige, 10 minutes lang
I have something to say about that. We've been seeing things online about it. Several social media architects have commented against it and walang for it. I'm not necessarily for it. I wouldn't do it in my own home. And clearly, parang lumalabas si Lloyd Cadena, parang I guess he didn't want that either. But who's to say that he just said that pero yun talaga yung gusto niya in the first place. Kasi, I mean, if you look at Instagram, ang dami naman diyang ladders na ginagawa up to the second floor. It's actually a design technique in which you maximize the space that you have. Kaso with this, ginawa nila concrete. It's honestly the first I've seen made of concrete. And I guess that's why a lot of people commented about it because nung ginawa pala siyang concrete, medyo pangit. Pangit yung execution nung quote-unquote ladder/stairs niya. Pero as on a design standpoint, I wouldn't say it's wrong. I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's totally wrong. I mean, in some cases, like I said, it would be applicable. I mean, we do have spiral staircases. We do have ladders going to the second floor, and it's not a problem. It's up to the user. To begin with, yung kitchen yata yun eh. I think that stairs was intended for the service quarters.
Actually, parang roof deck / sampayan nila sa taas.
Oh, see? So, given that, I wouldn't be surprised if yung original discussion nila nung whoever designed it, they didn't, si Lloyd Cadena didn't put too much emphasis or attention to that staircase since sampayan lang siya ang pupuntahan. It's not for public viewing. It's not for other people other than the service people who would go up there at magsasampay na damit. So I would say it's been overblown to some extent on social media.
Yes.
And for fairness sake, of course, I don't want to say na hindi ko naman kasi alam yung totoong story eh. Kaya I don't want
That's true.
I don't want to put conclusions here. Pero if that were the case, yung sinasabi ko, that sensationalism of the whole staircase was unfair to whoever sabi niya may architect daw siya, is unfair to the architect who designed it.
Tama.
Yeah, doon ako eh. That's actually my thought eh. Kasi parang tama ka eh. Through social media and through because of the popularity ni Lloyd Cadena, parang it has grown out of proportion na a lot of people are reacting, especially us in the industry. My thought kasi is this, it's a simple stair. It's a simple staircase, di ba? And hindi lahat ng design ng staircase is applicable to whatever space that you have. For me, I think number one, mali yung choice of design for the stair for that space. Number two, mali din yung execution. I only know what I know. I don't know the full story. I only know basing it. I'm only basing my thoughts to what I saw doon sa video. Kasi ako, first year pa lang in college, tinuro na sa akin paano gumawa ng hagdan. Diba? Iba't ibang hagdan, spiral, ladder type, whatever hagdan ang gagawin mo, you have to consider na ang hagdan ay access. Yun lang yun eh. And parang seeing that kind of hagdan na ginawa sa bahay ni Lloyd Cadena, there is something really wrong. And you have to admit it, something really wrong. Now, whether it was designed by an architect, kasi ako personally, and this is my personal opinion, hindi ako naniniwalang it was a design by an architect. If it really was an architect, or maybe it was designed by an architect, pero it was executed na mali. Yun yun. But at the end of the day, mali pa rin yung hagdan. So, parang, yun ako eh, parang, please don't point out that this was designed by an architect kasi ilalaban ko talaga. And I think a lot of people will back me up on this na hindi ganyan mag-design ng isang arkitekto.
Well, not to debate you.
It's very simple.
Not to debate you on that notion since hindi nga natin alam. Pero again, it is acceptable to some extent. And kung yun yung gusto ng kliyente, yun yung gusto ng kliyente. We could argue with the client that it shouldn't be that way. Pero sila yung ultimately gagamit ng space eh.
But if that's what they want.
Diba? Hindi, I'm not saying na dapat lagi tayong magsasuccumb dun sa gusto ng kliyente. But, sometimes, in my experience, meron weird na paggamit ng isang space ang mga tao. And if that's what suits them, as long as you still find, our job as an architect is to find if it's still at standard, if it's still to code, if it's still to standard. And tama naman eh. Hindi lang siya maganda, hindi lang siya the most comfortable thing in the world, but again, with a discussion of mali ba, hindi naman siya mali. That's my take.
Ako, I will abstain from this conversation. Pero yun lang. Ayoko na ma-stress. So I will abstain from I've had my share of expressions and emotions. So let it stay there.
Okay. So
let's all move forward.
Yes. And this has been the third, sabi nyo nga, run of the podcast.
Run.
Next week, ang mga co-anchors ko dito, medyo magte-take a break muna as we give way to the podcast being in cooperation with UAP District Regional District A2A, and of course my co-anchor for then will be Albert Dumlao, Architect Albert Dumlao, our district director. And we will be joined by the National President of the UAP, Architect Rene Heray, Architect Don de Guzman, idol ko yun, National Executive Vice President. And of course, hindi ko siya naging prof sa UST, pero isa siya sa mga nagtuturo sa UST, si Architect Joy Manalad, the Secretary General of the UAP. So, thank you very much, guys.
Okay. Sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, this has been paused. Go ahead, go ahead.
Hindi. Sige, okay na ako.
Anticlimactic ka naman eh.
Hindi, kasi
Pa-closing spiel na ako, Kalay eh.
naman. Hindi, kasi excited lang ako dun sa after nung next. Pero, sige.
Sino nga ba uli yun?
We will have landscape architect Vincent Lim of Clark Design Studios.
And the
So,
episode
That
will
will be on
be,
August, diba?
that's right. We'll be talking about,
Bring it.
Vahn, go, take it away.
Sige, mas gusto ni Van yan.
We'll be talking about. Okay. You will miss Kalai and I next week because si Architect Pacoy would be joined by our colleagues from the United Architects of the Philippines. But when Kalai and I get back on August, is it August 2? Basta first week of August, we will be joined by Architect Vincent Lim, as Kalai mentioned, and we will be talking about the national hobby ngayong pandemic. Indoor plants and indoor gardens. So we'll be talking about bringing out the plantito and plantitas in us. And I'm very much invested in this topic.
Sobrang excited ni Van. So, talagang pinilit niya
Yes.
sa Pacoy na mag-yes.
Talagang wala nang segue para dun eh, no?
Wala na.
Yes. So kasi if you've noticed, diba, if everyone has been noticing for the past tonight and then last week's episode, we were talking about like a big concept in architecture. Although ano naman din, but when we get back, parang we were talking about we will be talking about indoor plants. And I was begging Sir Pacoy, sir, bigay mo na sa amin ito.
Yes, and like you guys, I
All right.
mean, I'm a firm believer in having softscapes into the house as well as in on the exterior, and it should be part of the design altogether. Ang problema natin as architects, we tend to forget where to put them, kaya pag nag-design tayo, ginugubat na lang natin sila wherever they may be, wherever there's open space available for it. Pero I think we architects should put more focus on having more green into the design altogether. So anyway,
So,
hahaba na naman tayo eh. Yun lang. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. See you next week. And good night.
thank you so much.
Salamat. Good night.
This has been Poste.
Thank you for joining
This has been Poste, your online source.
Go. Napuputol ka eh.
Oo nga.
Let me do my closing spiel.
Okay, go.
Okay, anyway, this has been Poste, your online source of information for anything design and construction in the Philippines. Of course, this is in cooperation with UAP Barasoain Chapter. Good night, everyone. We'll see you again next time.
Babu.
Okay, yun na.
Babu.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.